Hey everybody, and welcome to the 33rd episode of the Foundation First Fitness Show with Bob Atgoen. Today we are fortunate enough to be joined by two of my very close friends, gym owners in Montreal, friends for probably about 8 years now, former colleagues, and today I'm just going to kind of pick their brains. I really like what they've been doing here over the last couple of years, so I really needed to have them on the show. Really excited to get this thing going. So I'm going to kick things off by letting them introduce themselves and telling you a bit about what they have been doing in the last couple of years. So whichever one of you guys wants to start. I cheaped out and forgot the other mic, so we're going to have to be sharing one of them. Sorry, guys.
My name is Mike. I'm co-owner of CrossFit Waverly. We've been here for almost 5 years now.
My name is Cosimo, co-owner of CrossFit Waverly. We've been here for almost 5 years.
So tell me about the gym, the CrossFit gym. Like what do you guys got going on here? What kind of stuff is going on? Tell me a bit about the gym itself. Like what do you guys do specifically? I know it's CrossFit Waverly, but I know that you guys do other stuff. So maybe give them, some of the listeners, some of the little things that we don't usually talk about or see. What kind of stuff do you guys do around here?
Well, we offer 3 different services. The core is obviously CrossFit.
Yeah.
Then we also specialize in Olympic weightlifting. We have an Olympic weightlifting club, and we go to the Canadian Nationals every year. And we've also added a HIIT program to our group classes to be able to cater to the population that is looking to get back into shape, that's a little bit intimidated by CrossFit and wants to get a feel of the gym. And also for some of our CrossFitters who, unfortunately, when you hop on the CrossFit train, sometimes the strength portion is what takes over your training, and you kind of omit a little bit your cardio and your muscular endurance. So that's a class that really helps them to regain that cardio once they've gotten a little bit too much into the lifting.
So I think like one of the things that I wanted to touch on was that I know that you guys, I know something you just said was really interesting to me, because a lot of people talk about CrossFit and how it becomes more of a cardio-based type of situation, but now you're discussing more of the kind of strength side, which is not something you hear very often. You know, from what I've seen, a lot of CrossFit gyms, and this is not every single one of them, from what I've seen in recent years, it's been very heavily cardiovascular based. You know, it's very high circuit based. And I think something that I noticed, even watching today's class, because I was able to sit in on a couple of minutes of today's class, was a lot of strength based stuff. So what do you think? Why do you think that makes you guys a little bit different from all the other gyms? Is that something you guys look at talking specifically about your CrossFit classes?
Yeah, I think because we come from a personal training background, and we always had an interest in the strength and conditioning world, I think that we turned our philosophy of training across Waverly more of a form of strength and conditioning, mm-hmm. which has also the cardio aspect to it towards the end of the workout. So the programming, the planning when you walk in has a form of strength and conditioning, and has a form of cardio that is added to that strength and conditioning, just because we're trying to make it as complete as possible within that 45-50 minute time frame that we
mm-hmm.
have.
Okay, because I think that, and that's good to know, because a lot of people are a little bit worried about it. I know some people are hesitant about CrossFit itself, and I know they have their reservations, and everybody has their opinions on it. So it's good to see, and that's, I think, was one of the reasons that I personally really liked a lot of the stuff that you guys were doing, was because you guys seemed to be doing something that was a little bit outside of the, I guess, quote unquote, box of CrossFit and what everybody was very much doing in CrossFit, and you guys are focusing more on those little things. So, I mean, what's the I guess the philosophy here? So what is the main philosophy? What's the religion you guys really believe in terms of training? Like, what's your thought process going into it when you guys are, training, training someone that comes in? What's your basic, like, almost like your rule of thumb for that person that's coming in? What are you trying to give them at the end of the day?
Well, I think the first thing, and we could both, we both, I mean, we both have our own vision on that, and it somehow meets down the line. So I'll speak for myself. I think the most important thing when you're starting to train someone is get them strong. Let it be their foundation, let it be their strength. Just get them strong
I like
and
how you said
capable
foundation.
person.
I like that. That was good.
You know, a strong foundation, strong muscles, strong musculoskeletal system, your tendons, your ligaments, your bones, just prepping them, being able to work. And if you don't have a foundation of strength, unfortunately, you know, everything else is harder to achieve. Greater risk of injury and all that stuff. So how do we achieve that strength? Unfortunately, it's through lifting. I mean, you can't get strong if you don't lift, right? So that's why we reinforce a lot of the lifting when people come in here, and that's why they have to go through a fundamental program to learn how to lift. And our fundamentals, there are 5 private training classes, and all 5 of them are based on a lift.
And so talk to me a bit about that 5 training class, because I think that's something, or that 5 session first kind of initiation. So talk to me about that. What would someone expect to get out of that? Because I really like that thought process. Because I know a lot. I know that some places do it, but I know that not everyone does it. So talk to me a bit about that kind of 5. What would they be getting from day 1 to, let's say, day 5?
Well, the idea behind it, there's many things that are gonna happen during those 5 classes. First things first, we're gonna get to know the person. We're gonna see how they move, how they react to their training. You know, unfortunately, there's some people, you ask them to move their leg and it's their elbow that bends. You know, we need to make sure that the person knows how to move, understands basic core principles of training. That's why we always start with the squat. So we look at them squat, and you know, it's a quick body analysis that we do. But just by the way that they're able to squat, we usually could tell how everything else is gonna go. All 5 classes, I'll let Cos describe all 5 classes, but that's one of the main reasons of why we started this fundamentals programs, to get to know the person and how are we going to be able to individualize a group training for this person.
That's good. So instead of just kind of like throwing them through the conveyor belt, it's almost trying to get them to, or get to know them, so that as the classes go, you can almost like half tailor.
Yeah, but not only for us to get to know them, but also for the trainee to know themselves. You know, some people think they're in great shape. A lot of people come and see us. Yeah, I mean,
It's almost like that awareness.
Yeah, and then in 10 minutes they're on the floor. You know, I can't do this. This is too hard. You know, so they get to know themselves as well. They get to know what they're getting themselves into. They get to know the movements. What does it mean to keep a straight back? What does it mean to squat properly? And we try to demystify, and people read on the internet, and there's so much information on the internet. So we try to demystify all this information that is often in people's heads. Try to, you know, simple it down so that they understand what we do here and how we want things to be done here. And it's kind of like the beginning of the mold.
Okay. Cos, you want to grab the mic and talk about the 5 classes?
Yeah, so the 5 classes, the way they're structured is we run through a few mobility and warm-up drills, like foam rolling, and kind of teach the client how he should prepare himself for a class. All depending on what the movement is, you know, like if the day 1 is going to be squat, day 2 is going to be the deadlift. So we go over a few movements, and what we noticed is that they maintain, like, right, they remember these movements, and when they come to a class, they're ready to go. So we do run a warm-up with them, but they're also very aware of foam roll and ankle mobility drills and hip openers and good mornings before deadlifting and so on, which kind of gives them their own independence, which is important in a successful group setting, right? Because a lot of people mistaking a class with 12 to 14 people, a lot of people mistaking a class of 12 to 14 people as almost like a private training session, which it is not.
Yeah. Right. So
the more we educate them in being independent, the better it is for them, and the more they could enjoy the progress from class to class.
Yeah.
And we set that up from the very beginning through those fundamentals.
It's interesting. I think that's something that kind of goes, that's been something that I've been kind of like, that's been bugging me for so long, is when I look at a lot of these group classes, there's no there's no almost autonomy given to them. They think that they go to the classes and the class is enough.
Yeah.
You know, they don't think about the, like you said, the preparation, which I think is probably, obviously the movement and understanding the movements and understanding, what you guys expect and what you guys are going to be, what they're going to be looking at in the classes, and you understanding them as well. The aspect of actually understanding how to almost take care of their body is so huge.
Of course.
And no one really thinks about this stuff. And that's kind of like where a lot of these injuries are coming from, the taking care of their bodies, because we go from this, sedentary lifestyle outside of these four walls and then jump right into the most intense workout they've probably done in their lives, for majority of these individuals. So that aggressive extreme requires so much almost like understanding of how to take care of their body, which is something really. I saw that you guys had foam rollers here. You guys had a pile of them. A lot of people are using them. I know the mobility stuff, and I know we spoke about having me come in and do some mobility stuff, which we still have to discuss. But sorry about that. That was my bad. But yeah, like I think that's huge. So I'm gonna tie this into almost kind of like, because I know you guys we discussed it a bit before, but we're gonna jump into a little bit of almost a Q&A type of situation. What do you guys think about it? Because I know you said squat one day, deadlift one day. I know we discussed it, but what's your thought process on squat versus deadlift? Because we've had this discussion before. So tell me a bit about your mindset between these two exercises.
Didn't you go first?
Well, I mean, you got to do both. But, I like to demystify to a lot of people, people say, deadlifting is bad for your backs. No, it's not. Bad deadlifts are bad for your back. The problem is deadlift could be just pick something up off the floor, no matter which way, and the bar might get off the floor. Whereas the squat is a lot more technical. You can't just fold. At some point, you'll be stopped. Like if you want to do your deepest possible squat, you'll have to respect certain principles to be able to execute the movement. So on that end, the squat is a little bit more technical, requires greater mobility, and is a great strength lift. However, personally, I rather deadlift. I mean, I'm much better at deadlifting than I am at squatting, so I rather the deadlift, and I feel that it is often much safer for clients because they're aware that the deadlift could be bad for your back, but they're not aware that the back squat's actually really bad for your back because of all that compressive force on your spine. So when they deadlift, they pay more attention, whereas they associate the squat to being bad for your knee, so they'll pay more attention to that and not gonna really think about their backs.
Yeah.
So I feel like the deadlift is of more of an aware situation, since it's the bar is dead on the floor. They have time to set up, they have time to think about what they're doing, and then they could execute the lift. And in a group setting, I mean, teaching the deadlift is more accessible because, I mean, almost everyone could get into a deadlift starting position, let it be conventional or sumo or some sort of just raise the bar a little bit off the ground if they're not flexible enough. But it's not the same for a squat. I mean, some people cannot squat with a barbell on their backs, right? So it's for a group setting, it's definitely more of an accessible movement that we can go to.
It's interesting because that, like, you hit the nail right on the head. There's so many people that talk about deadlifting as like this taboo exercise you should never do, and it's just I mean, I think it really comes down to, and I was kind of, I'll be honest, I fell into that trap a little bit myself because I was dealing with a specific population, and when you deal with that same population all the time that has that same limitation, it almost forces you into specific exercises. You know what I mean? Like when you're dealing with someone that has bad hips, it's a lot harder to make them squat because they have bad hips. They have low hip mobility. They can't get that deep. And then it's, okay, so should I be back? Oh, is it bad? Oh, well, so I mean, I could see both sides of the coin, but I think, like you said, that if you don't have if you don't understand the difference between the two, it can be a very dangerous area to play in, So, Cos, give me some, let's hear your input on this.
Well, I agree with what Mike said in terms of like the deadlift being a lot more accessible. I personally prefer to squat more than to deadlift.
Do you feel like you're better at the squatting?
I'm just better at the squatting. and I
We
prefer
like
it.
what we're good at.
Yeah, we like what
sure.
we're good at. However, I do believe that you should be able to do both. I think that what you were saying about like, catering towards a specific population and then going into that specificity sometimes could kind of bite you in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like about CrossFit, to be honest, because, you'll walk in a class, our classes anyways, and you'll see a girl, like you saw today, sumo deadlifting 200 pounds. And I could ask her to empty the bar and, snatch 95 pounds. And I could ask her to rack a bar and squat 145 pounds. And I think that there's a process that needs to be taken in consideration. And if you set them up properly from the beginning, they'll be able to do everything. Now, do I think that the deadlift is more important than the squat? I'll lean towards maybe yes for people, for the regular population, just because I think that you'll bend down and pick up something a bit heavier a lot more likely than if you squat down and pick it up. So like if I look at it as an everyday life perspective, yes.
Yeah, like everyone says you're supposed to bend from the knees, but no one actually bends
Exactly.
from the knees.
Yeah,
like
who
no one
squats down
actually
to
ever
pick-
does that.
So
No, and you can't squat to pick something up. It doesn't make sense. You're not in the proper angles.
Like if it's outside of if it's too like.
exactly. So
I understand where they're coming from, but it just doesn't make.
It doesn't make
It's not
sense.
feasible for the majority of cases.
But that's the problem. I mean, we understand that because we're in the world, but then we have to make someone understand what we understand. But there's so much information out there that's going against what
That.
we're trying to do, right?
100%.
And you're trying to tell someone, no, you're supposed to use your back. Your back is there. You can't not use your back. It's there. It's got the biggest muscles in your body. You have to use it. But how do you use it? Properly, you don't use it to lift. Use it to stabilize. Like you have to be able to educate these people. Say, no, I gotta lift with my knees. But you're bending your knees in the deadlift. And then there's this other side of the coin where you talk about the deadlift and why it gets a bad rest because people don't know how to teach the deadlift. They teach a stiff leg deadlift only. They think that's a deadlift. I just had a client recently who walked in. It's a brand new client, and I go, "Have you deadlifted before?" She goes, "Yes." And she gets into this stiff leg position where her butt's super high. I'm like, "Okay, that's a stiff leg deadlift. Get into a regular deadlift." She goes, "No, this is how I deadlift." I'm like, no, you gotta.
No. Yeah. You gotta
put that.
You're a little.
There's a load
So
Yeah.
that's the problem. That's why the deadlift is, because there's many ways you could deadlift, but there's not many ways you could squat.
No, you're squatting.
You're squatting.
But that's really interesting because I know a lot of individuals mix up the two. So many people, and I used to be that guy. We had this conversation. I'm not one to really admit when I'm like wrong. I'll usually just kind of like dust it underneath the carpet and just kind of be like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing today. And people are like, what happened? No. That was something else. And I used to talk about like like deadlifting, but almost from like a squat position.
Yeah,
and it was like, and I, you know what it was? It was that I could do it.
Yeah.
Because my biomechanics let me do it.
Yeah.
So I was okay doing it because I was able to respect all the rules, everything fit properly. But unfortunately, not everyone can do it and respect all those rules. And so like, I think this may be coming into the back, and I don't want to touch too much on back injuries because that's a huge topic in itself. And I don't think any one of us probably are qualified to really have a full on argument. But I think a lot of what ends up happening is the weight on the deadlift goes up too fast because we are not aware of like the misfiring or the poor technique. We almost think like bar goes from here to here, we're good. But in squatting, and you said it right, like you're not comfortable doing it, so it almost like shies you away from doing it. But once you kind of think you're getting comfortable, people almost like they don't realize they're in the same position. They don't realize where their body is. And they're like, yeah, I'm going straight. It's like, no. Your body allowed you to follow into a path where it was kind of okay, but you're not okay. Like you're in a lot of trouble right now. So deadlifting, like you said, it's one of those exercises where you have to progressively get there. Like Haas said, like you have to progressively get there. There's a systematic process where you're not trying to race up because the ego wants that, like everyone's got to see me deadlifting, 200-300 whatever pounds, you know what I mean? Like I get that. I understand that because I see it a lot with all the athletes that I work with. It's always like, ooh, easy, because if your back's not stable, if you're not stable in the back, then you're going to get injured.
Yeah, of course.
But that's everything.
But that's just to say that deadlift is not bad for you. Your ego's bad for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bad deadlifting is bad for the person, not, So one of the questions I got from one of the viewers was a question about sports and specifically going from sports into fitness. How do you transition from sports into fitness? Now, I mean, I'll probably kick this off because I think I deal with a lot of people that are potentially in that realm. And the question came from someone that I know who's a football player. So football player, big time football player, trained for many years. And one of the things I think I'll say, and I'm going to look into the camera because I think there's a lot of people that might be listening or watching that might actually really value this part, because it's something that hits home for a lot of individuals where, they play a sport competitively, they train for that sport competitively, and then the second they stop, everything goes away, and it happens all the time. And you'll see a lot of it. And a lot of you guys must deal with that all the time, because when CrossFit started kind of surfacing and becoming popular, everyone was like, oh, I like it because it's challenging like my sport was, and I want to do it. And all of these lifts, yeah, guys, I used to do these lifts back in the day and I love doing that, but they don't understand the transition. So like for someone who's playing football like he's a little bit younger, so it's probably a lot easier for him. But being able to work with football players was something I was really fortunate to do, because I personally believe football players, in terms of like their ability in the weight room, it's like, football, rugby is really, those are the two sports where it's very, very, very hard to find someone who can actually keep up with them in the weight room. It's really hard. Like, and I deal with majority of my athletes are hockey players. It's not the same thing. Like, hockey players are very strong, but football players in the weight room are just a whole other thing. And so I think when you're coming to really answer the question, you have to basically look at two specific things. I think you have to look at where the person's coming from, what their experience level is, and at the same time, you have to look at almost how long they've been out of the sport, how long they've been out of training. And to make that transition, if you're coming from a sport like football where your tolerance is very high, and you're looking to make a transition into something, it's a lot easier. You do what you normally would be doing with any type of sport. You kind of ease into it, but you could probably ease into it a lot faster because your body's aware of it. Now, obviously, I would tell you, if you are training for a sport, take a step back. If you have been taking a long time, you want to basically you really have to really keep that ego in check, because it can get away from you, because your brain still thinks you can do it, but your body just can't. I played soccer for the first time in 9 years, and I got on the field and I'm trying to step over the ball, and I stepped on the ball and I was like, okay, my body's just like not doing what my brain thinks it can do. It's almost like, no, lift your leg, no, do this. So you get in the gym and your ego just kicks in. It's like, yeah, I got this. And next minute, they're in the hospital. Like, yeah, I pulled my hamstring. CrossFit and weight training is stupid. You always get hurt. It's like, no, you weren't ready for it. So I would tell you that if you're transitioning from that into fitness, I would tell you 100%, take it in, go step by step, because that's probably going to be your easiest route in. That's just my opinion. Anything to add to that? I don't know if you guys want to shed some light on it.
I think CrossFit is perfect for people who play a competitive sport, because it has the potential of being a competitive style of training. Personally competitive, trying to beat yourself, or having a training partner and trying to beat one another, but in all fun and games kind of thing, I mean, in our gym, we don't reinforce a competitive atmosphere at all. We say it's a group training with an individual effort, so there's no competition within the group class, but there could be some friendly competition amongst individuals to push you to do a little bit better. So people who've played competitive sports, it's the perfect training to keep that competitiveness alive, right? But like you said, you got to ease your way back into it. I mean, if you're talking to your football player, he didn't become a great football player from day one. He had to learn a couple of things. He had to learn his plays. He had to practice his plays. He had to run his drills. It's the same thing. There's a learning curve to CrossFit, and it only becomes really, really fun. You know, you have to love the process of learning, but it only becomes really, really fun once you've kind of got the hang of all the movements, and you're still learning, you're still progressing, but you could kind of all chain them together without thinking so much. Then it becomes really fun.
What do you guys do for your competitiveness? I know you said you try not to have a competitive atmosphere. What do you guys do in regards to kind of maybe halting that or dampening that competitiveness? Because it could get, and it's easy when you create that kind of atmosphere, you know, that kind of high energy atmosphere, that heavy lifting atmosphere, that almost like ego boosting atmosphere. How do you keep everyone's ego in check? How do you keep the competitiveness in check?
Yeah, we always kind of set the tone for that from day one in our gym. Even our competitive athletes, which are like machines,
yeah,
they're so humble. You know, as they walk in the gym, or if they're training next to someone else, and you know, they encourage each other. It's very community based, and because it's so community based, I think that that competitiveness in between members, or even just because I think that sometimes in other boxes, maybe that competitiveness in between members or in between athletes, whatever, I think it tends to fuel your ego a bit, you know?
Yeah.
Wanting to put more on your bar, wanting to finish the workout quicker, not caring about your form, and so on, right? And we've set the tone for that from the beginning, you know, really focusing on technique and focusing on, you know, making them understand that the clock is there to help them to add intensity to their workout, but it doesn't mean that you throw everything, you know, out the window, right? You know, I think it's just, it's not game day every day, exactly, you know. So I think that's what we try to do in terms of that.
Do you think, have you guys ever had to deal with that, like someone that you had to kind of like hold back a bit?
Some
people, yes,
Rugby
it
player.
happened. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
you know,
player.
rugby and football players are
Yeah.
pretty competitive, and you know, it's good what you said, because, or what Mike said, that they have to ease their way back into, you know, back into the sport, and kind of learn what they, you know, learn the CrossFit a bit more in the movements and so on. I think it's important because a lot of football players and rugby players, from what I've seen, they're gifted strength wise. They're very strong, but they're so strong that they skipped a few steps in terms of technique, right? So here, when you come in our gym, you know, even though you're very strong, if you have technical flaws, we'll point them out, and we'll bring you back, and we'll make you understand that by taking 2-3 steps back, we'll be able to move forward in a month.
It's the hidden injuries.
Yeah.
It's the hidden injuries the hidden weaknesses in athletes.
Yeah.
That's probably their biggest weakness.
The biggest weakness, yeah.
100%. All right. Before we finish off, I wanted to maybe go around and ask you guys individually. I'll throw one into. What have you guys been doing? What's been on your mind lately? Like, give me something that's been like you've just been like obsessed with in the world of training or fitness or health.
Yeah, sure. I've been testing out a few things, like a pre and post muscle exertion type of thing. I'll give an example. Let's say I'm working on a squat, trying to build someone's squat. I would make them hold a wall sit for 30 seconds, do the strength component on the squats, and then follow up with some plyo. Or I would make them bike really hard for 30 seconds, make them do their squats, and then follow up with another squat-based exercise, and kind of triple setting things like this. And usually what I like to do is an isometric contraction before, then we actually do the lift, and then some plyo follow after that. And
So you go
really good results.
So you go isometric, strength, plyo.
Yeah.
Why the isometric first? Because I've always done strength then plyo, but I've never done the isometric before.
Just get them tired. And I started, actually, this idea came to me with one of my powerlifters. He's super strong and his bench is not really good. It's really, really weak. Just to put in consideration, at his competition, last competitions was last Sunday, he squatted 520 and deadlifted 620 and only benched 310. So it doesn't really make sense. So we tried to change his bench. We tried to do all sorts of stuff. And I went bodybuilding style with him. And it actually worked. So I go, you know what? Bodybuilders could still bench a pretty fair amount. Benching in powerlifting is a whole different beast, right? It's a whole different beast. So I said, you know what? And at the same time, you're gonna feel good about yourself, and you're gonna be more comfortable under a bar. So let's try that approach. So I wanted to really target his chest. So I was making him do chest flies before his bench to get that muscle stimulated and a little tired, so his body would.
Yeah. So it's okay.
And then I applied that to the squat. I tried it for myself. So I suck at squatting. So I go, let me do some wall sits, fire up my quads, and then try to squat, see if my quads take over. And they did. So I'm kind of testing out a couple different things. But from what I'm noticing, it's only working really well for pressing movements. I still have to work out a couple of flaws for the pulling movements. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's awesome. Cos, what about you?
A bit similar to Mike in terms of like I've been using more and more bodybuilding movements in my training or my athletes. I think that it's very good accessory work. I think that it's a very good complement to CrossFitters or anyone in the strength and conditioning world. I think that it's to be respected just as much as any other discipline, and I think that in combination with the right training, it'll help you push through plateaus, like Mike was saying with the benching, you know. So a bit of bodybuilding, some isolation work, you know, I think is very important, especially for us here that we do a lot of like, you know, compound movements, like we deadlift, we squat, we clean, we snatch, you know, very one direction. So like, you know, working on also static holds like wall sits and like time under tension, playing around with that too. You know, just for size, not only just for size, but just to keep the muscles healthy, keep them going. I think it's important, and I've seen it with a few clients, and I'm myself my own guinea pig, so I've been using it on myself as well, and it seems to be working.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. Yeah, I know the accessory work is huge.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people kind of don't see or don't look at it, don't think about it. They almost think like, what are we going to focus on today? And then they don't try to like incorporate that in the accessory portion. Like they don't think of what would complement that first initial movement. You know, if you're going into like squat day or deadlift day, like what kind of accessory work, you know, can help that movement. Something that I've been like kind of going on right now is stability work, which is like, I never did. Like I did, but I never really did it with like stability accessories. Like I never did any BOSU stuff. I never did any like stability ball, like, you know, I did stability ball work, but not like, you know, standing like really tough stability stuff. I never did it. I think I just never thought anything of it. I was just like, you know, this is more of a, I'm going to use it, but I'll use it for like a rehab based situation. I won't, you know, so much use it for like actually trying to improve someone's performance, let's say. And so what I've done is almost not kind of go like full tilt on it, but I've been putting it in like on the side, you know, like accessory work, you know, just kind of throwing it in there ish, kind of just getting a nice little sprinkle of that stuff at the end, you know, because I think like it's not going to tire them out, you know, it's like whatever, like it just doesn't really matter. But that's kind of something I've been going into. I am going into something else, but I have a guest coming on who I know is going to say it, because he said it last time, and then our entire interview got botched, so we have to redo it. So I know it was his, and then he got me in on it, and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, now I'm obsessed with it. But it has something to do with the stability work, but I'll let him kind of tie into that, and you guys can check out that episode. We'll talk after this when the cameras are off and the mic's off. We'll discuss what he was talking about, but it's really interesting stuff. Trying to get the listeners a little interested in hearing what we're going to talk about. So to end off today, what do you guys have coming up in September? Like, I know it's right around the corner. It's literally, when this comes out, it's going to be day after Labor Day. So it's literally when the big wave is coming. What do you guys got going on at Waverly? Is there anything that these guys would be interested in?
That's a good question, Mike.
You guys got 4 days. Start marketing.
Not sure we could talk about it yet.
Yeah, we can't talk about it yet, Bobby. It's,
You can't talk about it yet?
Not yet. But
if this interview was in a week from now, then we could have spoke about it. But
let's just say
okay.
that if you changes, and if if you like to pick up a bar or learn how to pick up a bar properly, then there's gonna be a lot more openings or availabilities in terms of that. Like if you want to learn the lifts, whether it's powerlifting, whether it's Olympic weightlifting, well, there's gonna be a lot more opportunities to that in our gym.
Well, if you guys are interested in figuring out what that is, you guys can pay attention to some of their stuff. What's your website is
CrossFitWaverly.com.
Perfect. And social
Instagram,
media stuff?
Yeah, same thing. CrossFit Waverly on Facebook and Instagram. A lot more active on the social media.
Yeah.
So you can check us out.
Cos, what about you? What's your personal...
It's Strength Con Coach.
Strength Con Coach. It'll be in the description. It'll also be, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, it's going to slide along the bottom. Mike, what's yours?
Mike Guzzo, personal trainer.
Mike Guzzo, personal trainer. That's Facebook and Instagram for both of you guys, basically.
Yep.
More or less. Okay, good. So honestly, guys, like this has been awesome. I had a good time today. I definitely want to do something a little bit more like a round table discussion with you guys one day, and literally just want to get another mic and not do so much of a intro to what you guys are doing, but maybe just kind of like hash out some ideas and get some thoughts going on some really interesting stuff, and maybe have that kind of like a segment on my show. So I think that'd be really awesome. Thank you guys for having me here. I know you guys probably may, for those of you watching on YouTube, probably notice or recognize this office if you have seen episode 25, was with your wife, Cos, who did an outrageously good job. Everybody had like reached out to me literally that week, was like, oh my God, that was the best show, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, okay, that's good. So we got to get her back on. And so we couldn't get her back on, so we had to settle for you. Yeah. So sorry, guys. I'm gonna link it up here at the top on YouTube. I'll throw it in the description for episode 25 because I think that one's a really interesting one. And thank you guys again for letting me come here, and thanks you guys for being a good sport and just kind of like hanging out and talking shop. Appreciate that. And until the next time, guys, keep building that foundation.